My sister's husband was pretty upset when I told him I was seeing someone else. This is just a vent post, but any advice would be appreciated. Here's some context. I'm Ashley, 17. My sister Jess, 25, has been married for 2 years to her husband Jake, 34. They started dating when she was just starting college and have been together since. As far as I know, they've never had any problems. Whenever they came around, they seemed happy. When they visited, they seemed like the perfect couple. My parents made some mistakes in life, and my sister basically raised me. I'm grateful to her for this. She made sacrifices to be able to do so, especially when she was in college. I called her at least 3 times a week to check in and see how she was doing. She talked about school, work, and other things. She was planning to do this, and then she'd talk about Jake. She described him so wonderfully that it really made me think about what I wanted in a partner. For example, all the flowers she got, all the beautiful dates she went on, and how he treated her so amazingly. After living with my parents, who should have gotten divorced a long time ago, I wasn't in a relationship with someone who had a good example of what a healthy relationship should look like, so I became quite close with Jess and Jake. It had always been just me and my sister. So when she introduced me to Jake, it felt like I finally had an older brother. Eventually, Jess and Jake moved in together, got engaged, and now they're married. My parents ended up kicking me out because I refused to pay them rent. I have a job at a luxury horse ranch, and there are a few perks. They'll let you use their horses to practice, they'll offer free lessons with a riding instructor, and all around, I just love my job too much. I didn't want to leave due to the perks, though my pay isn't that good. For how much my parents were asking for, I'd have to get a second job or quit to find one that pays enough. So I ended up living with Jess and Jake. Jake works from home, so unless he's taking Jess out or at the gym, he's at home. He makes enough money doing whatever it is he does. I have no idea what he actually does, but Jess said it was his family's company, which explains it. They recently told me they were expecting, and I was excited for them. However, my sister has had a few miscarriages, so we needed to be careful with her. This pregnancy is complicated for my sister, even in the early stages, so it's high risk. Hopefully, this gives you a clear idea of what my parents had: an old car that I was allowed to drive to work and school, but after they kicked me out, I could no longer use it. I always liked the sense of freedom that having a car gave me, but I'll get over it. Jake insisted that he would start taking me to school in the morning and then driving me to work in from there. I was extremely grateful for this because I didn't have to take the bus or walk. After Jake finished his daily routine at the gym, he'd head home, shower, get me Starbucks, and drop me off at school. In the afternoon, he'd pick me up from school and drive me to work at the end of my shift. He was usually waiting outside or on the way, so it was really a great help. I was so thankful that he'd take so much time out of his day to help me. We'd end up talking and having conversations, whether it was about Jess or the plans for the baby, but he'd always ask me if I was dating someone or had a crush on them. He'd wink and say, "You're so beautiful. It's not possible. There's got to be something you're hiding from me. Come on, you can tell me. You know I can keep a secret. Just tell me." There was a guy, I'll give him that, but it was too early to talk about, which meant I ended up being vague because I didn't want to lie to him. Basically, I was just playing it cool and not answering any of his questions with too specific of an answer because I just didn't feel like jinxing myself. Eventually, Alex, who I was talking to, asked me on a date. His family owned the ranch where I worked, so we ended up spending a lot of time together while I was working. Usually, during my shifts, he would come and I asked him to help me out or we'd go riding together. I was really excited, and on the way home after my shift, I ended up telling Jake. He immediately got cold. I don't know how else to explain it, but there was no longer a familial warmth. He started asking a lot of questions, and I answered because I figured it was just the protective older sibling thing and that it might take some time for him to get used to it. Then, when I told him that after about a month of talking, he got really angry and started calling me a liar. He said I'd been hiding something from him. What I've been thinking about since is that he literally said, "What about us?" I'm still confused about what he meant. The worst part is that I've been overthinking a lot of what's happened since I came to live with them. I live with them, and there's a pool in the backyard of Jake's house. Sometimes I'll go out there to swim or just to lie out there in the sun. However, I've now come to realize that any time I went out for a swim or tried to sunbathe, Jake would make an excuse to come and do something outside, whether he'd start up the grill or mow the lawn. I'd get that feeling that I was being watched, but a few times he just started swimming with me, but I figured he was just trying to work out like me. After I get out of the pool, I go to take a shower in the hallway. Jake and Jess have their own connected to the master. After I'm done with my shower, I would go to my room and then get changed and sleep. Sometimes though, in that short distance between the hallway and my room, in which I'm wearing nothing but a towel, Jake would be waiting for me. He'd say, "Good night," which I would say back to him, but now I'm wondering if there was another reason for that. I don't want to bring these concerns up to my sister because she's been feeling fragile recently. This pregnancy is really hitting her hard, and I just don't want to say anything because it could end up hurting her or the baby. I just need an answer as to whether or not I'm overthinking. I really didn't even consider that my sister could easily take his side over mine, but after reading all those comments, I think I should start collecting evidence. I'll try my best to improve the dynamic between him and me without raising any red flags. I'm happy to tell my sister if I think there's any immediate danger, but as I said before, I don't think he's the type of person I'd rather wait until she's healthier to. I'd like to relay this news just to be on the safe side. Given that my sister could be seriously hurt, both emotionally and physically, and given the risk to her pregnancy, I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it was really scary seeing the way he flew off the handle like that. I really do feel like he's probably just been under way too much stress. Given that my sister's pregnancy is truly high risk and he's had to take care of her much more than usual, he's probably just worried that something is going to happen to her. However, even if I do give him the benefit of the doubt, I should establish some boundaries. When he had that blow-up, it really unnerved me and I didn't feel safe. I know I'd never be able to overpower him, so I'm going to ask a few of my friends if they'd be willing to carpool with me. I'll also reach out to Alex to see if he can give me a ride to work. If he can give me a ride to him from work, worst comes to worst, I'll just find a job that I can walk to. In the meantime, I'll definitely try to emphasize the brotherly relationship that I feel with him. I'm going to try to stay pleasant because I really don't feel the need to be hostile and create an aggressive environment. Other than that, I'll be taking some steps to see if I can change my situation. Update. My sister's husband, I'm starting to think I'm overthinking this. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who left a comment on my last post. I read all the comments last night and realized that I'm no longer safe in the situation. I'm making changes from this day forward. I respect and love Jake, but I don't think the risk is worth it. I did try to initiate a conversation with him after I posted, and I got some responses. I was just looking for advice to see if there's a chance we might be able to talk about this. But he was still in a bad mood, so I just went to my room in the middle of the night. I felt like I really needed to get out of the house, though I really just started feeling so trapped. I decided that I would take a walk to my smoke spot and then try to clear my head. I'm not even there 15 minutes before I get a text asking where Jake was calling and calling and calling. I was terrified. I wanted to be left alone. I eventually picked up the phone, and he started insulting me. He said I'm an effing princess, who always gets her way and that I deserve to be treated like that. Then he told me to send him my location. I told him to take a breath and think about what he said. I ended up calling Alex, who thankfully picked up and explained everything to him. I'm not sure how much he understood, since I was shaking and crying. He ended up driving over and asking more questions while he tried to calm me down. I was able to relax eventually. I was able to relax and tell him everything again with a clearer head. My phone had been ringing off the hook, but I assumed it was Jake and just let them keep going. Eventually, I realized it was my sister's phone calling me. Despite knowing there was a good chance it was Jake on the other end, I still picked up. It was indeed Jake unleashing another flurry of insults at me loud enough for Alex to hear. Alex took the phone from my hand and told Jake to stop. He said I was safe and then hung up. He just told me it would be okay and not to worry. He ended up driving me to the ranch and told his parents what happened and my current situation. I'm grateful they let me stay in one of their extra rooms for a little while. After that, I just kind of cuddled with Alex and tried to get some sleep. I ended up not going to school today because I needed a break. However, after Jake's reaction and the comments, I started to worry about my sister. I called her and she picked up. She sounded upset, so I asked her if she was okay. And if I was okay, Jess told me that the night before, She had woken up to Jake's yelling, which really startled her. She pretended to still be asleep. She ended up hearing him come back into their room and take her phone off of her charger. Afterwards, she heard the yelling again and then the front door slamming. Apparently, Jake had gone to look for me and had kept her phone with him. She told me that she didn't know what to do. She was scared that he was going to hurt me. It was about an hour later when Jake came back. He was still in a bad mood. When she asked where he was and what happened, he got really angry and started yelling at her. She said she'd never seen him this angry before. He started wrecking furniture. After a few minutes, he got back into the car. She left, but thankfully left her phone on the counter. She looked at the call logs and saw all the calls to me while Jake was gone. She ended up calling a friend to pick her up and then tried reaching out to me. I was asleep at the time, but she told me she was scared that he had found me. She told me she was really sorry for not being able to protect me and for failing to see that this was happening. Jess asked me why. I didn't mention any of his behavior, but I told her that I didn't want to stress her out with the pregnancy. Then we both had a long cry. My parents are allowing her to move back and rent-free because they want to help raise their grandbaby. If this had been an option in the first place, none of this would have happened. But I digress. My sister and I ended up going out for dinner, where I showed her my post and we cried again. She told me that she'd never been scared of him before, but after seeing his anger the night before, she was shaken. We still need to get our stuff, but we're going to reach out eventually and set a date that we can move all of our stuff. My dad and Alex will both be there just in case he tries to pull anything. According to my sister, he has tried to reach out and AOL lies. He said it so many times, but he just claims that he was worried for my safety and that I shouldn't be out at night. He had no idea that she could hear exactly what he was yelling at me, so she knew for a fact he was lying. Jess let him know that she'd be filing for divorce and then hung up. I love my sister and I wish her nothing but the best in life. I know she will recover from this and find an amazing man that he loves her and only her. On another note, Alex and I are going on a date next week, so I'm pretty happy about that. I'd like to thank the Reddit commenters for stressing me out so badly that I just needed to go on a smoke break. I think you may have saved me. I don't know what would have happened had I been in my room that night, but I'm grateful that I didn't have to find out.